Hi, welcome back. It's good to have you back with Coach Barnabas. My name's Corey. This is episode 48. Just excited to have you here. Thank you so much for tuning in. Over the weekend, we had the privilege, although it was a sad experience, but we attended a celebration of life for a friend of ours who passed away about a week ago. And when you say celebration of life, this truly was that. So the fact that I can talk about it in such, an upbeat and positive way is because that's how this gentleman lived his life. But if you're anything like me and you've ever attended a funeral, memorial, celebration of life, whatever the case is, and I've attended some where I didn't even know the deceased, somebody my wife knew or something. I always walk away, first of all, feeling like I knew them, or feeling like I knew them better than I already did. But also, I walk away basically doing a self-analysis, doing a little self-assessment of my life, and thinking about, I'm going to break this down a little bit, but I walk away thinking about, what would people say about me at my funeral? And what I mean by breaking that down is it's not about, opening the mic up and one by one people get up and say, what a great guy he was. I hope people feel, like I hope somebody will show up. Let's put it that way. Let's start with that. I hope somebody will show up. But beyond that is to think, what is the legacy? What are we leaving behind? What's a lasting impression? How do you make people feel after spending time with you? Do you make them feel like, man, I'm glad that's over? Or do you make them feel like, just it didn't seem like enough time. I wish we had more time together. Whatever the case may be. Now, again, I hope you hear my heart there. It's not to, because I want people to think I'm a great guy, or that I want a lot of people to show up or whatever, because frankly, I won't be there. So I won't know. But the question really is, what is your impact? What are you bringing into the world? What are you bringing to others in your interaction? What are they observing of you? Are they observing somebody who is maybe annoying, or are you somebody who was inappropriate in certain situations, or are you somebody who always had something positive to say? Are you somebody who always left people feeling better about themselves? Or are you somebody who drew them closer in their relationship with God? Are you somebody who always had a kind word? Are you someone who, whatever, right? And this is, I apologize, I'm getting over a cold, so my voice is a little rough, so please bear with me. But, what is your objective? What is it that you ultimately want to leave behind as your legacy? What is your epitaph? For David, it's a man after God's own heart, right? That is forever how he's known. And despite his failures, his shortcomings, the things that he did that were epic mistakes, he is forever known as a man after God's own heart. And who's going to stand up with me, honestly, and say, hey, look, there's mistakes there. There's some epic failures, mistakes, and I've got the scars to show them. But at the end of the day, at the end of his life, her life, this is who she was. This is who he was. And, and that's what I kind of want to say today is, again, not to get down in the dumps talking about death, but talking about what are you putting into your life? What impact do you have on others? And some people leave a scar behind, and other people leave, maybe they leave stitches behind, and they help sew that gaping wound closed. Wow, this got really kind of clinical and weird. But I think you understand what I'm saying here, right? And so that's kind of how I look at these things. And thankfully I haven't had to go to many funerals lately. But when I do, that's how I walk away thinking, and just looking in the mirror and saying, don't let any engagement with another person lack on some sort of impact. Whether you're making them laugh and you're a funny person, that's great. To make people feel that, but also, that you invested something into their life, whether it was in passing or whether it was an ongoing close relationship. And we all have those. We all have relationships with people we see in passing, and they always had a smile on their face, or they always seemed like they had the weight of the world on their shoulders. They always had this look of worry and concern and burden and all this stuff. Or are you a person who, no matter what was going on, look at Job, who lost everything. I talked about him before, who lost everything, but was faithful to God and remained faithful to the very end. And no matter what his closest friends were saying, no matter what his wife was saying, his trueness and faithfulness was ultimately to God. He never compromised. He never backed off of that. Is that something that inspires you? Is that something that you aspire to be? Then show that. Demonstrate that. If you find yourself not, because there are people, and if you do social media, the people who are always complaining about stuff, right? And they may have really legitimate reasons. They may have some serious health matters or whatever. But if 9 times out of 10, whatever it is that they're sharing is woe is me, is, complaining about this or whatever the case is that somebody you're going to want to hang out with? This is that somebody who's going to bring out the best in you, or is that somebody that's going to pull you down? Am I that kind of person? Am I the person who, and I'm not saying use social media as some sort of manipulation tool or some sort of, propaganda tool, but it's a matter of saying this is a reflection of who I am. Okay. And I want to be somebody, I'm speaking for myself, I want to be somebody who is an encourager. I want to be somebody who encourage people toward Jesus, who encourage people to overcome their adversity, to overcome their shyness. I've talked about it many, many times, my own sense of being an introvert and overcoming those things and saying, but were it not, whether I'm an introvert or an extrovert, whether I'm type A or type Q, it doesn't matter. As long as I have breath in my lungs, my assignment is to glorify God and to introduce others to him, to the goodness of God. And they can decide for themselves whether or not they want to taste and see that the Lord is good and enter into a relationship with him or not. That ultimately is their decision. But I definitely want to be an influencer, and that word is used a lot these days. It doesn't take anything to be an influencer anymore. All you need is an audience, okay? Believe it or not, whether or not you have a podcast or a big Instagram following or whatever else, name the vehicle that's out there, you have an audience in the sense that whether you're walking through the grocery store in the produce aisle or your workplace or your church or down the street, whatever the case is you have an ability to influence people with a smile, with a word of kindness, with a word, with a face of, you're influencing people. Okay. So the question is, how, in what direction are you influencing them? And I hope if you spent any time watching Coach Barnabas, listening to the Coach Barnabas podcast, I hope you are sensing the kind of influencer I aim to be. And that's my purpose. And I strive to do that. And if you're here, I hope that means you're somehow like-minded and that you want to be a person of positive influence and to draw people to the fullness that life has to offer through Jesus. So, and as I was thinking of this, I love hoodies because there's this little pouch right here that I could put things in, like my phone, that has the Bible verse in. As I get older, I need these bad boys. I'm putting on my spectacles. But I was thinking of these verses out of Psalm 78, verses 1 through 7. I'm going to read them real quick for you. Give ear, O my people, to my teaching. Incline your ears to the words of my mouth. I will open my mouth in a parable. I will utter dark sayings from of old, things that we have heard and known that our fathers have told us. We will not hide them from their children, but tell to the coming generation the glorious deeds of the Lord and his might, and the wonders that he has done. He established a testimony in Jacob and appointed a law in Israel, which he commanded our fathers to teach to their children, that the next generation might know them, the children yet unborn, and arise and tell them to their children, so that they should set their hope in God and not forget the works of God. And that to me is what this is about. This is what legacy, that's how legacy is defined, is what are we passing on to the next generation? And the next generation may be somebody plus or minus my age. It doesn't necessarily mean just younger people, although that is certainly what we're talking about in this verse, in this passage of verses. We're talking about passing this on to the next generation, and to the younger ones, to learn from us, to learn from those who have gone before us, and we pass it on. But sometimes the influence that was passed on to us needs to stop here. That influence was negative, and we're not going to pass that on to the next generation. Okay, you know what I'm talking about, right? That at some point, that history, that legacy, that lineage has to stop, and we're going to start a new legacy in Christ, and we're going to pass it on to the following generations. You can learn from the negatives and the bad things that have happened to this point, but then, like Paul, we have a pivot point in our lives where we say, in spite of those things, in spite of the things that I have done, in spite of the things that happened to me, this is how Jesus worked in and through those things, and that is hopefully the legacy that we pass on to people in our lifetimes that will be passed on beyond them. Okay. And ultimately it is the same thing. That's what we're just reading about in the Bible. That's what the Bible is. We're passing on from one generation to the next for thousands of generations. The Bible has reached thousands of generations through its time. And that's what we're to do, is to pass that legacy on. And so that's my encouragement to you, is to consider what your legacy is. Is your legacy about, wow, what a great person they were? They didn't really impact me with anything deep or meaningful, but, I enjoyed my time with them. Okay, that's fine. There's nothing necessarily wrong with that, but it's kind of hollow. It's kind of empty. People are more, wow, what a great person to have around at a party. That's all fine and good. That is a lovely thing. Versus, wow, you never wanted to invite them anywhere because they were miserable and not engaging to be around. Not very fun. Okay, I get that. But ultimately, what is it that you are offering people that had meaning, okay, that changed their life, that influenced them to improve upon their life, to reach new heights, to overcome obstacles, to get through difficult chapters in their lives, to move forward. And honestly, that to me personally, you define for yourself, and, leave comments, whatever. I'd love to hear that, because I'm speaking for myself. I'm speaking from my own perception of things, and from my own vantage point, but I'd love to hear yours. And I hope this encourages you, because that's ultimately what we're here for. So with that, I just want to ask you again, if you're watching this on the YouTube, you're listening to it online somewhere through one of the podcast host services, that you'll like and subscribe. That is encouraging to me, and hopefully that means that you are gaining something from these conversations. But also, there is a way, I'll drop a little picture in here. If you go to the website, https:// Coach Barnabas is BarnabasBaras.buzzsprout.com. That's the website. I'll put it here at the bottom. Also include a picture here, because when you open up an episode to listen to the audio only format from the website, there's a link to send us a text, and you can send a message. It's a one-way message, so you're not going to get spammed. You're not going to get all kinds of stuff from me, because it's actually, frankly, impossible for me to respond to those. but you could actually leave a message and whatever you want to say. And so I'd love to hear from you. And that's always fun. Also, whether it's YouTube or Facebook or whatever else, wherever else you find access to this, I'd love to get your comments there, because we hope we're making a positive impact in your life and maybe lives of other people that you might share this with. So thank you again for joining me. Be encouraged. Be an encourager. I look forward to talking again very soon. Take care. Bye now.
Thank you for joining the Coach Barnabas podcast. We'd greatly appreciate your support by liking and subscribing to the podcast and setting up notifications so we can let you know when new episodes are available. We'd love to hear from you, so please leave a comment. Make a difference today.